And I'm live. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit on the late side there. I hope you're all well. I've got more people in the chat for starters than I usually do, actually, so maybe I need to keep you waiting more often. I'll try not to. Yeah, give me the old smash the like and give me a you're doing grand, we can hear you and we can see you in the chat too. Yeah, give me the old smash the like and I'm getting feedback. Okay, so yeah, hope you're all well. Brilliant. We're good to go. So what I've done tonight, I was almost, and I say this kind of every night, I was on the brink of like maybe not streaming tonight because Last True Gale and Phil Dwyer and critiqued, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but they streamed a little while ago. So I was thinking maybe they're doing a stream, I won't bother, maybe I'm lazy. And then I kind of said I would. So I've gotten together some tabs. I've even gotten some of my own tweets. So I'll just be reading out my own tweets to you and stuff like that. But I do so because it, contains some information that I think is relevant, and some other stuff too, just general kind of bits and pieces. So that's what I'll be doing. Generally talking about Keelings, the Keelings Plantation. The Keelings Plantation. You better pick those strawberries, boy. I'ma whip you. No, I don't think they whip people, but they may as well. All sorts coming out today, all sorts of stuff. The kind of story has truly broken. And we were talking about this a few nights ago, if you remember. So we have memed this story into the stratosphere, which a black pillar could come along and say, well, what good is it? It's good. It's better than nothing. We are driving the narrative. We are in control of the narrative. And that is a good place to be. Especially in such a, I won't say volatile, but such a interesting time. So that's good. Generally good. Generally everything good there. So I suppose I should say share my screen. These are pretty disorganized, like just a random assortment of tabs. I'll let you know now as well that, so I want to talk, this is mainly about Keeling stuff, just a general overview of the day's goings on. I probably won't capture everything here. The other thing I want to talk about is this guy. And if I cared about my self-image, if I was being a savvy person, I would not address this because, stay away from it. But if I was that kind of person, I wouldn't be sitting here now and I wouldn't have been addressing these subjects for the last few years. And the subject is this young fella. And his name is Dylan Murray, I think, right? And we'll talk about him in a second. But he got in trouble for some kind of slur. And I have interesting thoughts on that because I'm not in to defend these slurs and stuff like that. People might expect, some of my detractors might expect such a thing or whatever. I'm sure they know better. But I think I'll have a nuanced enough take on that because it is an interesting little story. Siv says the young fella did nothing wrong. I mean, it's very interesting because it's not what you would think on the face of it, and we will get into that. And generally, I'll just be going over. I'll be honest with you. I'll probably be going over things like probably most of you have seen today, just kind of going on in general. Now I have refreshed that. Yeah, signed out. Okay. Keeping it signed out, keeping it real. So let's just look at, so the National Party, for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do, were protesting today up in North Dublin. And, I won't say who was there, taking some footage of them. It was an aspiring journalist. He has a YouTube channel. He wears glasses. But I can tell you no more than that. So, like I say, bear with me. So here's the National Party today outside the Keelings Plantation for protesting them for the importation of Bulgarian fruit pickers. I spelled it Bulgarian wrong, I learned, during the pandemic. And then this is worth listening to. We're going to have the same problem of audio here again. Let me know straight away if you can't hear it, and I'll probably be able to fix it. a lot of beeps. Yeah, that's a lot of support. And from my aspiring journalist friend who wears glasses and is very handsome, said he told me that cars were beeping all around Hello. It says I'm live. It says I'm 13 minutes in. Let me know there, guys. That was strange. That was strange. Someone says there's a strawberry blocking my camera. Right. Okay. I'm good. I'm good. That was odd, and I'm slightly disconcerted now. I'm not trying to say it was like the CIA doing it to me or anything, but and thanks for sticking around as well. That never happens. Streaming isn't the only time I use the internet. I use the internet a lot, and it's never ever happened to me before. So that's quite strange. Yeah. So we're back. Let's just get back to it. I'm a little bit on the throne side. Let's share screen. Okay, we are back to where we were. So what was I on about? Oh yeah. More P says we adore the rawness and unpolishedness of it. Thank you. I'm glad you do. So raw and unpolished. So this guy, this Jer guy, challenged me to a debate, and it's just and by the way, I haven't thought of arguments to come back against this guy. I don't sit around doing that. I speak sincerely, and I don't prepare massive things. So I'm not having some virtual debate with this guy. But he's one of these people, like works for a radio station or something, radio producer, presenter, whatever, right? He comes in saying, what does he say? So he's insulting them. He's saying no Irish people applied for the jobs, and I'm like, yeah, maybe they could try paying more, and they would get people to join their staff. He says, couple of points: the company must be paying at least minimum wage. So, and also, we don't know that. We don't know anything about this. The Keelings haven't answered on this stuff yet, so we don't know if they're like they accommodate these guys and cut it from their wages or whatever. And it doesn't matter anyway if they're paid minimum wage. A big deal, right? Some Irish people obviously felt this was beneath them. Yeah, it's beneath them because if you pay more, they will do it. This is just obvious stuff. The contempt for these people. Keith Wood said it last night. He did a nice condensed video, which is kind of like some of the points I've been making. Keith Woods had a video about Keelings. Very good. But it's like he just said, fuck the journalist class who defend the capitalist class who defend Keelings. All of these arguments are cynical. And here's the main thing, right? He's like, your mate is in the pic is wearing an Adidas top. Do you care about sweatshops? Yes. Yeah, I care about sweatshops. Bunch of hypocrites. You don't even know what you're angry about half the time. I know perfectly well. So then he comes back to, I just asked him to debate me tonight, because that would have been nice to have a stream. Oh yeah, sorry, chat. Yeah, mods, be on your best, here if you can, because just because I imagine a lot of these NGO type people will be in here. So yeah, it's such a foreign concept to them. It's like, just, you're the one coming into, and to answer that thing about someone wearing an Adidas top, it's like there's a meme for this. There's a meme for this. It's brilliant. It's this one. Someone says we should improve society somewhat, and he's like, yet you participate in society. Curious. I am very intelligent. It's like, what's your actual argument? You're pointing out it's not a hypocrisy, and you can always point out. It's like this thing of like someone who's in support of the environment who took a car to get to the protest. It's like, that's not the point, Anyway, it really isn't the point. It's like, why are you talking about Adidas hoodies when we're talking about Bulgarians being transported to a strawberry picking farm transported via a charter flight during a pandemic? That's what we're talking about, right? You can point out the other things, but it doesn't bear any relevance, to be honest. And actually, if you ask me, yeah, I would ideally like to change our economic system in general for the more protectionist and the more kind of, what would you say, autarkic, I think is the word, that type of thing. It's a complete straw man. It's completely ridiculous, which is why I just wanted to say to the guy, listen, there's no point going back and forth with you on this stuff of like, for example, like, say what you want about vegans, But a vegan does their best to like avoid meat and animal produce because they believe that factory farming is wrong, and all farming is kind of inherently wrong. Whatever, right? That's their belief. And someone saying to them like, "Oh, but what about your laptop? Maybe there's glue in your laptop that's used from uh, horse glue or something like that. Therefore, buying eggs from chickens that are like 1,000 inside in one cage or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can't argue against factory farming because of the other thing. It's like, no, of course you can. That's very silly, and it's complete bad faith, and it's a complete regime operative. This asshole here. But to get around all this, and I say asshole, I've kind of betrayed myself there because I did say, and I would have been respectful if he had done this. I just asked him, did he want to respectfully debate this evening? I'm no Ben Shapiro. I'm no George Galloway. I'm no Christopher Hitchens. Like owning people in debates. I'm not coming into this like a slaughterer. On this stuff. I'm not. I'm just going to give my opinion sincerely. Won't even really prepare. So if you try to catch me out, you'll be able to catch me out. I just want to discuss it. It's not some killer cutthroat debate. Just let's discuss it openly. Let's compare our ideas on this. In a way that if you throw out these little straw men and these little like so-called catch-22s, you can look big and mad on Twitter, and you don't even, but you could kind of present as like got you by the balls or something. And I'm saying, well, if I had 2 minutes to just talk about this to you, this back and forth, this on Twitter is kind of limited. So you're the one coming into my mentions, throwing around insults. Why don't you just look at me in the face, albeit through a screen, and let's just have a conversation? Because you might want to say basement dweller or whatever, or something silly like this, right, on Twitter. Yeah, you might. But just talk to me and call me a racist scumbag or a this or a that, just to my face. And that's not like a fighting words on my behalf. I'm talking about through a screen. But you'd be amazed the way people melt and crumble when they're in front of you. And you kind of just go, yeah, they're not as brave as they make themselves out to be. And it's completely the other way around, because they talk about our side of things as, oh, brave man behind the keyboard. But it's actually they're the ones who are brave men behind the keyboard. Because when they're there, you're kind of sitting there and you're seriously going to call me an evil, racist, terrible, idiot, basement dweller, blah, 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 just to my face. And I'm sitting here in front of you, clearly presenting as rather normal, right? They completely fold. It's all hard man stuff on Twitter with these people. And the other thing is that while they're attacking you from their kind of high horse, they completely ignore the arguments you make, because what they do is go, you're a basement dweller, racist, or something like that. They go, your ideas aren't. What they do is kind of say, there's no onus on me to address your arguments because you are outside the circle, so to speak. So I don't really. It doesn't work like that. Only I am the one who pokes holes in your arguments, and you have to run around trying to put out these silly fires, these straw men. But my argument isn't on the chopping block here. My status quo defense isn't on the chopping block or whatever. And the reason I'm saying, well, just come on and have a discussion with me, equal time, fair, respectful, whatever. But if we do it that way, just through the natural process of conversation, well, you would, of course, have to defend the status quo that you're kind of seem to be defending. You would have to defend that in the specifics. And you would have to back up your point of view. And if you have some silly straw man, because we're speaking, I can just kind of, dispose of that pretty quickly, right? And logically. So, yeah, Ed the Statesman here is pointed out the randomer thing to me. I must find that, because he was like, I'll find it here now. So I said, do you want to respectfully debate? Again, it's like, you're the one obsessing over us. You're the ones who think we're monsters, and you're trying to, or you don't even think that, but you're trying to act like that. And you're the one getting into my mentions, and you're always talking. You guys lose sleep, right? You guys get breathless in the red in the face, supposedly concerned about us, right? Again, I said it about your one-o there on the Burkean thing. I've forgotten her name now. Dr. something something. You can tell me in the chat. I've forgotten her already. But Lucy Michael. Same thing with this Jeremy guy. It's like, hey, like, you have your radio station, you have all this stuff, or you're apparently a kind of a tastemaker in society. It's like, look, I'll send you a link. You open it up on your laptop. Take half an hour. Go into your little study or your room or wherever you go, and we'll just talk about it. And I won't be calling you, you're such a I won't, because we're two people, right? And let's just talk about it and see how they stand up. And that's the question I ended on the episode. I'm getting very fancy, of the Lucy Michael thing. And there's a reason why. In a normal society, that's what you'd do. You'd go, there's a very contentious issue. We have a free platform, an open platform that is neither of us kind of own, so we can just kind of go on it. You don't even have to come on my channel. We could do it on like a Skype and just upload it to a new channel dedicated to the video. The terms can very easily be hashed out. Why not just do it? Like, it's like we're talking on Twitter now. You're throwing things at me. I am 100% constantly always up for being like, let's take this off Twitter and let's just go have a conversation, right? And let everybody participate and watch and whatever. No, can't do it. That is something that cannot be stressed enough, how weak these people are. Because they know they only have the constraints of their own mediums and their own media platforms to get away with this stuff. But it's like, just come on, let's just talk about it. I'm sure you'll catch me on one or two things. I know for a fact, like, I do kind of argue with people on this stuff sometimes in real life. And it's like arguing with someone, let's say, on the asylum industry, right? That's my little forte. I could argue with one of these NGO lunatics on that and wipe the floor in short order, right? But these neoliberal economist types, I will admit, I won't say they have a point. I'm rather against them, but they have it because it's all so complicated. It is very complicated, and because you have to give the devil its due, globalism. It has its strengths in terms of production and stuff like that. On paper, it can get very convoluted, and they can put you up against the wall a little bit on certain things, right? At least they have the potential to. So it can be tricky. So it's like, guys, you could do okay out of it. Why don't you give it a go? I think it's because for all of the times where they could nail you on a slight thing where you kind of, it's not because they're right and you're wrong, but it's so complex and can be looked at in so many different ways that they could kind of have you like on a head scratch for a sec. And they could kind of take advantage of that, making it look like you're weak or something. I can envision this in the debate with them, and I've had it with these neoliberals. They have their little points that they always come back to, but for every time that they would have a little thing on you in that sense, maybe slightly in terms of just sheer production or whatever, you would have them on 10 different things because they point out the weakness of your proposed idea, which is a kind of maybe national, more national economy, a kind of a distributism, something like that, right? They poke holes in that because that's the new idea, shall we say? Whereas theirs is, I think you would say, the incumbent, the status quo. So again, they can rest on their laurels. But if you have them in a debate, for every time that they can point a little weakness in yours or something like that, or something you haven't quite worked out yet, you could nail them on like 10 things because they're responsible for the status quo. So when they say, I'll give you an example, right? I will give you an example. So, for example, here they will say, "Oh well, food prices would just go up." One of the solutions of you guys, the racists or whatever, is that okay? You Keelings can't get their Bulgarians in, and then you have to pay Irish people more in order to get them to work there, and then the cost is more, and then the cost can't compete with what is imported, maybe strawberries from Bulgaria. So you just kind of lose in the end anyway. And I kind of say, well, a bit of protectionism then, if that's necessary. But the key thing they say is that I've heard a lot of people say, it's like, well, if you nationalists ever did win and you would introduce your policies, some things would get more expensive. And whatever you feel about the public, even if you feel like the public could be ideologically smitten with you or something like that, as soon as it starts to hit their wallet and their kind of lifestyle and their consumerism, then they would just fold because people are fickle like that. So ultimately, your kind of nationalism is doomed under the weight of this force, and neoliberal globalism is going to be exalted into the future because it can always offer this kind of consumer addiction type of stuff, right? And it's like, that's bullshit, because as I have here in this tweet, in the year 2000, housing made up 10% of average household expenditure. By 2016, that went to 20%. So it doubled over 16 years, right? The proportional cost of housing, like your rent or your mortgage or whatever, within your whole household budget, it went from taking up 10% of your money basically to 20%. And in that same time, food, to the contrary, went from 20% to 16%. And it's like, for one, they say that, oh, if the price of an essential commodity increases and you can't offer the same low prices or whatever to people as they had before, then it just, whatever ideological thing you have, it just won't sustain that kind of, the fact that people are ultimately care about their wallet. And it's like, well, if that were true, first off, then Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would be gone in the last 20 years, because house prices as a proportion of budget doubled. So under that theory, on that alone, your theory doesn't make sense, because it's like, no, it increased double, housing increased double, and apparently they're still in power. So no. And also, I see these things as interconnected. So food, granted, went from 20% to 16%, right? That lowered 4%, but housing doubled. So like, for everything you saved in food, the idea that like we globalized our economy, we brought in lots of immigrants, we liberalized global trade, brought down barriers, all of that stuff, like the whole package. Yeah, we did that. And yeah, we shaved 4% proportionally off our household budget for food. So we got cheap food, we got Lidl, we got Tesco. Great. But our housing costs doubled. Now, why did our housing costs double, right? A lot of this open global economy depends on, there's the economic kind of rules for one, and then crucially is the labor force, right? Injecting all these people into the economy constantly, the people that we see all around us, the amount of immigrants that have come in that same last 20 years. Now, I don't think these things are accidents, right? In order to make this food cheaper, the whole package comes together. And part of it is that housing supply will never keep up with demand. So suddenly housing costs are just way more. So it's really a trade-off. And if you look at it under these numbers, it's not even a trade-off, because, and maybe I'm looking at this, maybe this could be critiqued. I'm sure it absolutely could be. But just as a starting point, at least, yeah, you took 4% off your food costs, but housing got more expensive. So what's the ultimate conclusion of that is that we instead of, like, let's say the food sector being forced to pay farm, and I know the farming thing is complicated, subsidies and all that, but just to look at it in a kind of simplistic way or straightforward way, we started paying farmers less. We brought in immigrants to pick the strawberries at a rate that Keelings were happy with, right? We did all that, so we killed people, the ordinary average worker in the horticultural or agricultural sector, whatever you want to call it. We sold them out, we brought them down to the lowest common denominator, but suddenly landlords get paid more, right? And I made this point before, if value of the service was proportional to how much people get paid, then we would be considering landlords as really hard workers or really smart, when they're obviously just sitting on a property, right? By circumstance, by chance, whatever. In a lot of cases. But so we, in a sense, what we did was we shifted by globalizing and bringing our food market down to the lowest common denominator and the cheapest possible thing, bag of tomatoes for €1, whatever, right? This kind of stuff. We brought that down and offered that to the public as this cheap food, but then housing went up. So what you really did was shift the value away from, to use analogies, the humble fruit picker, right? Because we're seeing it now, right? They have to be paid very low, therefore they have to be foreign and all of that. We shifted the value. It's just shifting your value, what value you place in different things. That was done at a macroeconomic level, clearly. And it was clearly policy as well. It's all part of this, is that you shift the value of that would be required for a national food sector. A national food sector would be more expensive. So basically it's like, you would go to the shop and that really, really cheap packet of apples or whatever it is would be that bit more expensive. And you'd be going, oh, Jesus, my budget for shopping is more, right? You actually have to pay the price it costs for an Irish worker to make it, or an Irish person to be properly compensated like a farmer. But at the same time, what can easily come with that, what can easily be done as part of that, is that as you unplug from that global system and the food bills go up, you have to pay what things actually cost at a native level, and you're not shipping strawberries from like Egypt to China to Ireland via Bulgarian semi-slave, right? Yeah, you're not doing that, so those things cost a bit more. But at the same time, when you're not plugged into all of this via the immigration and such, well, housing costs shouldn't be so much, right? Housing costs would be more like what they were in 2000, if you consider that a sort of baseline. So if you were to reverse these, you would actually gain, in a sense. Now, this isn't taking account of the other aspects of the household budget. It could get more complicated than that. I'm just giving you one frame to view it through, is that this whole neoliberal argument, and all of these arguments, sometimes if you don't know, if you haven't kind of been pushed to the wall to think about them, you could go, oh, you kind of got me there. But no, yeah, they rarely ever do. When you actually take these things out to their logical conclusion, people talking about the grocery bill going up, that's unsustainable. But it's like, well, house prices going through the roof in an apparent high period of the economy when we're supposed to be doing well and nobody can afford a home and people are living in boxes. Apparently that's very sustainable, right? That's perfectly sustainable. The neoliberal, the Varadkars can reign over that, and it's perfectly sustainable. But you pay Irish workers the amount they would require to pick our own strawberries and sell them to our own shops and put up a trade barrier to some of the others, so that we're not competing with basically third world labor or whatever. You do that, and it's just not possible. Oh, because food bills would go up. But the housing costs going up twice, all the usury, everything, no problem. That's whatever. I think I'm making that point. I could just keep repeating it because it's such a killer point. It's worth thinking about seriously. This thing, because the whole model, and if you want to get a bit more cynical, you could say, is it really an accident that the value placed, the amount things cost, the amount we value things, both in the kind of general sense of value and in the strict economic sense of economic value, is the fact that we changed that value, shifted it effectively, or let's say the fact that it shifted. Let's not assume to start with that anyone did it. Let's just say it happened. If the value shifted from the Irish fruit picker, right, who paying the farmer the proper amount, stuff like that, right, valuing your own sector, and that value, it went down, it got cheaper, but it didn't just get cheaper like society. We all just got way more spending money. Actually, other things got more expensive at the same time. For example, housing. When we look at housing, what are you talking about? Landlords, developers, banks, right? So all of that money that went away from giving farmers and horticultural laborers and all of this stuff, just the general food sector, native food sector in Ireland, all of that value that was taken away from that, which allegedly benefited us. They trick us then and say, it's all very cheap, really, isn't it? It's all very cheap, while your housing costs are twice as much. A number has just been done on you at that point, a sleight of hand, because while you were looking at one hand, the other hand was taking, and they give with one hand and they taketh with the other, right? And who taketh? Landlords taketh, right? Now, personally, I'd rather, as I said with the Keelings, I'd rather pay Irish workers the correct amount, and maybe maybe have people like the Keelings have like one less chalet among themselves, And I was kind of saying, like, does that make me a bad person? If it does, it's a crazy world we live in. But does that make me a bad person? I'm just looking for that. Yeah, as I said yesterday, or whenever it was, I want Irish horticultural labourers to have a good pay, bargaining power, and dignified working conditions, and plantation owners to have maybe one less chalet. Does that make me a bad person? And it's like, it's the same for the generalized system. I want, if it's a choice, if it's a policy, if you can shift the direction of where value goes, and you can shift that to say, hey, if you need to pay strawberry pickers a couple of euro more, and as a result, Irish strawberry, and you protect, you tariff imports, and as a result, you go to the shop and strawberries cost a bit more. They're more of a luxury, right? That's not great. But if I can save it on the other side on rent or mortgage payment, then I'm dead happy to lower the value of this housing market and to increase the value of good, honest labor, hard work, right? hard work and work that's connected to the soil and important, and is the food we eat, right? We are what we eat. And to kind of sustain a healthy economy with people at all levels, or at least at the non-elite levels, having actually a sustainable income, an income that is commensurate to their costs, right? And even if it balanced out perfectly equally at the end, and I just still had the same level of cost, but I could shift it to the fruit picker and less to the landlord, goody gumdrops, right? But that's what they will tell you. They will, before even getting to that, while just sleight of hand ignoring that, not telling you about that, not talking about it, if they even have thought about it, they will tell you that, well, the food costs would go up and that would be terrible, wouldn't it? What's your argument now, racist, bigot? And it's like, if they get you on that where you kind of are stumped, that's a killer, because the real argument goes way beyond that. And again, this comes back to why debates don't happen. I'm not claiming to be mad smart or killer debater or whatever. I just dwell on these things a little bit, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And that is why they don't debate us. Simple as. And you know what? If they did, for every time they would catch us out on a little thing, that would just be sharpening the steel, to be honest. But they won't even do that. I just think that shifting of value from one sector to the other, and like I was just going to say a while ago, isn't it funny that value shifted to banking, landlords, and developers and such? Who else? Insurers, all of this stuff, right? As all the salt of the earth, the kind of noble, honest industries and trades and ways of making a living all become, oh, that's just so unvaluable. We just have to ship in semi-slaves. You're not, you're going to have to either learn to code or just, something. But there's no economic value. I'm sorry. It's not me. Don't blame me. It's just, there's no value in what you do. I'm sorry. Bull fucking shit. Excuse my language. So what else have we got? How's the chat? You're all good. Painting tutorials from Emmanuel Godson. I'm up for it. So back to kind of where I was. I skipped through a lot. So there's the National Party. There was that. There was these arseholes replying to me with these fake arguments, afraid to actually debate face to face or discuss face to face. Right? Most people agree now, but it's just a few of these blue ticks, blue checker, who come in complete. The level of insincerity is unreal from these people, and they are the basement dwellers. They are the ones who are afraid to talk. They are the ones who are afraid to say, if you have a human face in front of them, they crumble. They can't deal with that, and they've never practiced their arguments. We practice our arguments constantly under fire from, let's say, everybody in general. And even it can be like a circular firing squad, right? This kind of sharpening steel constantly through having to defend. These people are so soft and doughy and wispy. They wouldn't know what to do. So it's just one of these things. I'm happy to any of these people that want to come on, even if, you know what, I don't prepare and they get the better of me a little bit. I'm not bothered. I'm happy to do it regardless. And that offer will always be out there to people. And until they do, as I have a book over there, Lee Kuan Yew, a guy I admire, who is actually a neoliberal, but I admire his statesmanship. The leader of Singapore, leader of Singapore. I love reading his memoirs. And he talks about when, I think I've mentioned this before, but when people would challenge him, would accuse him of things or whatever, he would say, hey, I want you on TV debating me, live and uncut, whatever, right? You can even state the terms you like, whatever, but you have to come forth and defend your accusation. And he said, when people are not willing to step forward and defend their accusations, then there's no more to be said. And that is it. Rear view mirror. So that was that. And what else? Now it's just random parts. Okay, so while we're at it, Taoiseach shares discomfort of CMO. So the CMO, Chief Medical Officer, Tony Holohan. So Holohan, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, Simon Harris, Minister for Health, they are all now climbing on board with this stuff. Oh yeah, we're discomforted by it. Blah, 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 right? Now, I take it, I accept it. We drove the narrative on this one. We forced them on this. They have to. But of course, their narrative will be, well, it is purely about, COVID safety and all that. But to me, it's about much more than that. I see Conor McGregor on Twitter talking about COVID safety and stuff. Now, I think he knows more than that, right? And he's just going at that level, and that's fine. I think his intentions are good, but in general, this line of that they will cling to the Taoiseach and stuff, that's just about COVID-19 and stuff like that. To me, is irrelevant, because it's like, yeah, that's a health issue. It's a good line for those who are trying to, like those of you here who are trying to flog the idea. Yeah, if you want to push it along with the COVID thing, it's true. It's true. That is a risk while we are all being told to stay at home. It's a fair point. But this goes far beyond that. But the important part is that this is happening all the time anyway. What this is just an opportunity from a crisis. Fair enough. But lest we forget the essentials of this. This is about the economic system, the anti-Irish, I don't want to say pro-death, but it's kind of, to me, it's anti-life. It's the life of the working with your hands and Irish people. For example, fruit picking, right? If it is seasonal, you could pay people a little bit more, and Irish people would come. But I was talking to someone about this earlier. It's not just the pay. Back in the day, if you were a student of college, let's say, and all of the Irish people at the fruit picking, all of the people at the fruit picking were Irish. You would think, I want to go down. It's going to be hard work, like, killer work, but it's going to be a bit of crack as well, and there'll be a bit of solidarity between people. And also that solidarity between people would force the management over years to just run a better ship for their employers, right? Or their employees. It would have to be better, right? Because Irish people would band together. They would probably unionize. And beyond that, people who wanted to be scabs or break the picket, it would be shunned extremely much so in a kind of cohesive culture, right? It would be like, you don't do that, right? So they could start making demands. They could go, we want, instead of you forcing us into these 11-hour days, no, we're doing 7-hour days for the same pay, or whatever it happens to be, right? Classic trade union dynamic there. You could force them. What I would say with Keelings is like the question of whether Keelings, and it's complicated because of the global order and stuff, but again, just to isolate a little bit of it and look at it through that lens. Let's say Keelings could only afford to pay the workers 1 cent more per hour, or else their business wouldn't be viable, right? Let's say that's it. It could be 1 cent, or it could be that they could pay €5 more per hour, or €10, or €300, right? Name it, right? It could be 1 cent, or it could be €20 more that they could pay them. The problem is, at the moment, we have no way of finding that out. There is no dynamic in place or at play that can actually tease out the level there, or have a power, like a tug of war. There is no way to tease that out and come to a middle, come to a kind of a equilibrium on that. There isn't, because you have your Bulgarians. I keep thinking of Georgians for some reason. I think it's because we forced Leo Varadkar on Georgians and Albanians, and we've also forced them on this one, so I'm thinking of Georgians. I'm all win tonight. I'm on a win buzz, win vibes. So yeah, you've no way of finding out. So the dynamic is always down, and it's just down on the labor conditions at a place like Keelings. The direction will always be stagnant or getting worse, I would say, right? That's my opinion. But if it were Irish people, like I say, the union effect and the culture effect and all of that, clearly it would be a better place to go. At the moment, well, you have a bunch of Bulgarian semi-slaves, right? Even if they did pay a bit more and it made sense for you economically, let's say you're either out of work or work that pays less or whatever, you think, I'm going to go down. It's going to be like back killing. But the pay is good. But it's, I'm going up to this plantation of a place, and they've been bringing in planes full of Bulgarians for years. I don't know, would I be even welcome at a place like that? You know what I mean? I don't know, is it really for me in a way? And the neoliberals could go, well, that's because you're lazy and you're not willing to do it and stuff. It's like, no, but the culture matters, right? The idea that nobody there speaks English, they're all like getting on and off buses, and they all have their forms, and they're just this culture, this extremely negative culture that you're meant to plug into, just wouldn't feel right. I think that effect is that there is a genuine cyclic, or how would I say, going around in circles effect of that. I don't know what you think in the chat. If you agree with me, the whole, and people might say, oh, well, that's very sissy that you'd be intimidated by the workplace. I think it's a real thing. I'm not talking about me or anything. I'm just speculating on the impact this kind of stuff would have. A kind of a troop, a kind of a shipment full of Bulgarians or whatever, and you're meant to just join into that workplace. It doesn't make any sense. Whereas, again, if it were native workers protected for them, it could be seen as a bit of seasonal work. Also, if you're a bit down on your luck, if you're a little bit, what would you say, marginalized, right? If there's a positive atmosphere there, couple of guys, couple of girls, bit of crack, healthy day's work, you know, you sleep well after it, you get to know people and you'll know them, you might know some of them for life. You know, one of those experiences, albeit dead hard work, but the two, one forgives the other, you know. You would think, yeah, that's an experience. And you know what, like I say, if you were a bit marginalized, and again, the labor pool for them limited, they would kind of be around the place a little bit on their hands and knees, right? So you wouldn't have to, you know, so you're a little bit marginalized. There's a lot of people out there like that. They wouldn't have to go through some kind of recruitment agency kind of stuff like that or whatever, right? If they needed the workers, they'd just be out there on their hands and knees, like back in the day with the shipyards. They'd almost be like, here's a bottle of beer. Consider joining us because we need the labor, right? We need it badly, and we'd be delighted to have people. Anyone who wants to work, you know, there's a good atmosphere. Come join us, and maybe decent pay as well. Not as little as we can possibly pay. It's actually as much as we can possibly pay, because there is that unionizing effect thing. So that whole dynamic makes for some thinking about. And my point ultimately is that it's about paying them more, finding out how much you can pay them, solidarity, and also just the culture in general. So instead of having, I advocate for an upward spiral, not a downward spiral. You know, does that make me a bad person? I'm not sure. So let's look at, yeah, I'm just checking out some chat because I like to stay. Yeah, so I'm just getting absorbed by chat here, but that's just, I don't know where I was. Oh yeah, so I was working off the Taoiseach and the CMO all making this point about, well, we agree it is quite worrisome about COVID and stuff. It's like, no. That's just the entry point of this story and the tip of the spear. It's ultimately about this sick economy we have, and ultimately society, because, you know, society isn't all about economy, but society needs an economy to work for it. The bonds and the normality of society, and I love this thing of like this kind of learn to code thing. You know, maybe these people should just move up the ladder. Maybe they should learn to code effectively, right? And it's like, because there's just no value in what they do. It's like we're past that point in the era. If you are a marketing rep or I don't know, an advertising assistant or something like that, right? Then, that's highly valuable, right? But then the fruit picker, it's like that shrug of the shoulders. And fruit picker maybe is a bad example. That's low hanging fruit, pardon the pun. But a lot of these jobs, a lot of these lower end manual jobs, they go, it's just not, there's just no value in it. One, as the pandemic is happening, we see how important they are and how unimportant the marketing rep thing actually is at the end of the day, right? So that should tell you one thing. And two, it's just begging the question, because it's like, okay, so the seasonal fruit pickers aren't worth more than the minimum wage. Okay, that's just raw economic fact that we just have to accept, even though we don't like it. But at the same time, you need to charter flight a bunch of Bulgarians in here to do it, or else the fruit rots on the vine, which we know it never would, right? If you put Keelings to the wall, they would be out on their hands and knees going, okay, maybe we could have given you a bit more. As it turns out, I think we can dig deep here and give you a little bit more. And of course, the next knock-on effect would be eventually they would hit a wall where they say, yes, we can't compete with the foreign stuff, and you need to do some protectionism, which is why I think this question has to go all the way back. It's not just about COVID. It's not just about Keelings not paying enough as an individual company, because there is some truth to the fact that they can't compete with Bulgarians who just do the cheap labor in Bulgaria, pick strawberries there and post them over. So yeah, there's some truth to that, which is why But that isn't me defeated in the argument or you defeated in the argument. It means we just need to go another layer back, because the problem obviously lies deeper. The problem is, and I need to think more about this, because I'm sure there's holes in it and problems with it and everything, but clearly a bit of protectionism is needed in some way, shape, or form to keep a healthy society going, where ridiculous things like this don't happen. And the fact that it's treated as like haram by these neoliberal economists is like, who are basically, their job is to defend the status quo. The status quo is just one idea, and it's like, again, the incoming idea, like they poke a hole in your protectionism thing. Fair enough, but it's like there's holes all over your thing, right? All over your thing. You know, airlifting a bunch of, I keep repeating it, but airlifting a bunch of Bulgarians into an island during a pandemic to pick strawberries is a hole, right? You have holes all over your thing. So your thing isn't just up on some pedestal. It is just another idea, a competing idea. But the point is, it's never made to compete. It's made to compete with this kind of hollow, cucked out, diversity obsessed excuse for a left wing. That's all. And that's not good enough. So it does need to be Keelings. Are Keelings in the chat? Are we serious? Or is this a spoof? Because that would be funny. Keelings has joined the chat. Can somebody tell me, just like sincerely, what was going on there? Because I missed it. And they're okay. So it's a spoof. Obviously, they wouldn't bloody yeah, spoof. That's funny though. But yeah, it's a competing idea, and it needs to be made to compete, and that requires a bit of thinking. And that's basically my point, is that it needs to go back to the root a little bit more, you know. And of course, no one is willing to do that. It's still a good opportunity to. We're still advancing our ideas. I'm not trying to light switch over to saying it's a black pill and there's no point to doing anything. No, there is point, but just, you know, it's good we've gotten people thinking about it, but like this kind of mind trap that some people are in, and it's not everybody, it's only some. We're doing very well. But you have some kind of normies, so to speak, right? You see them online being like, this has nothing to do with racism. It's about that it's a danger because of the pandemic. And you're going, lads, I understand you're like, there's been a lot of conditioning has gone on here and it's difficult to get out of it. And the fact that you're generally happen to be on the right side of this is a good sign. Fair enough. But like, you know, people need to break out of this a little bit, and they will slowly. This whole thing of like, you know, it's got nothing to do with racism. And it's like, well, I'm not saying it has something to do with racism, i.e. that it's about being mean or bad or any of that stuff, or being a demon. No, but like they've been trained to conflate racism. That is an all-encompassing word in their point of view, to include any statement to say, hey, immigration, not immigrants, not the people themselves or anything, but just the phenomenon of immigration, mass immigration, top-down enforced, kind of contrived immigration. Labor, basically free labor, right? Free movement of labor is bad. You saying that's bad or whatever, they've kind of been inculcated with this idea to fold that all in together. So it's only on these marginal issues. You see it all the time with something like asylum centers or whatever. You know full well that people agree with you in general, if prompted, and that they feel basically the same way. And when they give out about the fact that it's a danger because of COVID, they're ultimately expressing a deeper instinct that this is all just wrong. But yet they will enmesh themselves in this kind of cage, their own woven cage of their own, or a woven cage of their own, that they put themselves in, and that these cynical actors, these neoliberals and journalists and all of that, will know very well how to play on that stuff. And it's just like, no one's telling you need to come out and say you're a racist or something like that, because the word is meaningless. But you need to just see this for what it is. And if someone says, oh, so has this got something to do with immigrants? It's like, well, not about the immigrants themselves. Obviously, no one's blaming the Bulgarians. Even my guys and people way out more stringent than I am, I've not heard anywhere. I've not heard a whisper of an actual onus being placed on the Bulgarians themselves. Not at all, right? And this is from people who are not afraid to be controversial and all of this stuff, right? There's it's just not where the focus lies at all on Bulgarian workers. There's a respect for them. They're working hard. They're trying to do well, right? It's not about that at all. And people need to accept that. But then at the same time, it's not nothing to do with immigration or it's whatever. It's just so frustrating to see people cooked out. But they're getting there. Each time it ratchets up with them, they understand more and more. And these kind of farces that keep happening do start to mount, and the influence of these ideas grows, and we get more influential people. And influential people matter too. The Connors, the this is the that's, the Paddy Cosgraves, right? Influencing influential people is important. And I don't know how much they watch or they listen or whatever, fine. Maybe it happens by osmosis or just by the events of the world. But it's very important to assemble a team like that. Even if they keep at arm's length, even if it's a whatever, that's fine for now. So yeah, that's, I don't know where I went there. It's just the Taoiseach and this Simon Harris and all this coming onto it means very little to me. It's like, yeah, we forced you on it, but it's like, we need to, like, I don't want to use unfortunate analogies I'll get in trouble for, but we need to, all those analogies don't work because they can be misinterpreted. When you have to, when you have to boot on the neck, now is not the time to let go. You go further. We have to just keep driving at the situation here, and not get blackpilled and see it as meaningless, but not take false comfort in marginal victories. Keep going. Now is exactly the time you keep going. On a thing like this, and don't just settle for the fact that Keelings should pay a bit more or whatever. It's like, no, the entire system, top to bottom, inside out, is rotten. Keelings is but a window into that. That's where a problem is. Now, that's my point of view. You might think something completely different, so we'll move on. So Ingrid Miley, RTE News, I think. Yeah. She reports on Keelings shortly after 6/1. This was posted earlier, and I don't know where it's at now. She asked Keelings if workers were being housed in single room accommodation, if they're being paid for the 2 weeks isolation and the rate of pay for normal work. This is epic. This is monumental, right? Again, I don't simp for Ingrid Miley. I don't even know who she is, but like some kind of blue ticky type of journalist comes out and kind of boosts your point of view. I don't, she doesn't have a blue tick, actually. That's true. But I don't come out and simp for them when they happen to be making the right noises. It's like, I kind of try not to, because it's like, I've my platform over here and some others like me have platforms, and I keep going on my thing. The idea that you boost the talking point or whatever doesn't get me like, swooning, right? Whatever. I'm not going to pause to enjoy it. But we will pause for just a sec to enjoy it. Asking them these questions, and this is why it's important. It's not just about Keeling's COVID-19, risks or whatever. It's about, this is what it is doing, is peeling over the stone and looking at what's underneath this, because this is all a hidden society, right? All this imported migrant labor and these kind of economic measures, which we'll get onto with Keelings, loads of them, tax avoidance, this labor, this use of semi-slaves, the whole economic model. If anyone was looking at it in depth, which, for all we do here, we don't have that much power to do it. You need the mainstream media, the resource and tools they have, and the access. You know what I mean? I can't. If I send Keelings a message, they're going to tell me to fuck off, right? Which, I mean, it just is what it is. But maybe if RTE News has, I don't like it, but they have this authority of some description, right? They get to ask questions. So this is good. Peeling back that rock and seeing what's underneath this, and it is maltreatment. I take no joy in it. I don't like the idea of a bunch of guys who are just hard pressed, who are trying to do well, being brought on a bus, and kind of like, to me, it's like if you bring someone to your country, and I'm going to sound like an NGO guy here, right? Don't get me wrong, but to me, if someone comes to your country, you take pride in that, and you say you were welcome as a guest. Hey, how are you? So where do you come from? And you should come here and go there, and there should be that welcomingness. Now that good faith, that good intention gets translated by NGOs, where you get to the point where like Albanian drug dealers are being put up in asylum centers and you can't say anything about it, right? So they take the good intention that we should have and misdirect it. that, because it's nuanced and people can't handle that and they take advantage of that. The idea that you should welcome people who are here as guests temporarily, right? And say, hey, welcome to our country. We're proud of it. We don't want to treat you like bad. We want to treat you like really, really well. People say Iran and some other countries are known for their really, really good hospitality. And Ireland, of course, was known for that. I want it to be like that. I don't like to see a bus full of people with their heads down being brought in as these kind of, like I say, semi-slaves and kind of disconnected from society. They're in this kind of encampment kind of accommodation, and they just worked by these posh scumbags for their month on the cheapest money they can give them, because that money might be a bit in Bulgaria, and then just shipped back out again. Like it's an oil rig or something like that off in the ocean, this kind of labor. It's like, I don't like that at all. And that's going on everywhere. It's not about COVID-19 and this one instance with Keelings. It's happening all over the place. And it goes into human trafficking too, prostitution. You have, and this is the extreme end of it, the prostitution, the labor going out on fishing boats, this kind of undocumented labor, basically slave labor going out on fishing boats. This is going on all over the place. Now, if a nationalist government, right, I'm going to LARP for a second. If I had a party and it came to power, it's kind of one of these, I'm not going to act the dictator, right? But just a nationalist government came to power, who shared these ideas, you would have the power of the state to basically bust all of this stuff, left, right, and center, right, and you'd be amazed all the stuff that would come out. Not to mind all the other stuff about state subversion and ideology and all that kind of stuff, and all this kind of statecraft stuff. But just in terms of this migrant labor stuff going on, it's unreal, and it's just, I think it's so unbecoming of a country. I really hate it. I despise it, and it's not done because, like Sinead O'Connor said, as Keith Wood said, fuck Sinead O'Connor. It's like, she's so ignorant. She's like, I think we're lucky to have these people coming, and I think we're all full of love or something like that, right? And it's like, what are you talking about, you imbecile? We're lucky to have these people coming here. They're not coming here to be like, hey, welcome to Ireland, guys. You know what I mean? Let's go for a pint and let's hear about your culture, and you hear about mine, and come down to my house. We'll have a dinner and all of this stuff. I don't know, is that what's going on in her head or what? But it's like, no, they're coming to stay in basically, like, I won't say shipping containers, but they're staying in this kind of encampment accommodation, maybe some little apartments that are not being used. But it's work all day, sleep at night. Look at your picture of your kid in your wallet, right? And you're at the lowest wages they can give you in order to fuck the Irish working class over. And then you go home. And it's all done at the behest, to the benefit of these posh people, these people who own chalets in Switzerland and all of this stuff, right? These, what's her name? Is it Caroline Keeling? The Keeling family, this kind of stuff. It's done for them. This is semi-slave labor, right? I use that term loosely just in case they want to sue me. I'm using that term rhetorically. Semi-slave labor for their profit. And you've the Sinead O'Connor's going around talking about, oh, I think we're delighted to have them. Like I said last night, the absolute cluelessness of what's going on here is unreal. And there's so much propaganda and subversion has been instilled over decades, deep, where people can't even see a basic reality in front of them. And you even have people who would side with you and I here a little bit are kind of going, well, it's not about racism, or because it's not about racism. It's about a risk of COVID-19. I hate resorting to Orwellian, but there's something Orwellian about it, of someone being trapped inside their little bubble and having to kind of couch it in such a strange way at the most low-hanging fruit aspect of it, meekly to put it forward. And then as someone comes at them and says, I hope you don't mean that now in any kind of thing about immigrants or anything like that, and they have to go, oh, no, not at all. I did not. Some blue tick, right? Some journalist. It's insane what is going on. And this is such a good way of getting at it. And I'm glad, whatever about the media, that we have forced it upon them. Because do you think they would be talking about this? We have Keelings back in the chat. Is this actually Keelings? How am I supposed to know? Oh, it's another troll. Anyway, whatever. I don't know what to believe at this point. But what was I going to say? Have some tea. Yeah, we forced them on this. Do you really think that? I know now the basic information that there were people being shipped in came from a mainstream media article, just kind of reporting the basic fact of what's happening. but then it lay quiet for days. Now, do you think the NGOs or the leftists, and we'll check it out in a second, the leftists, some of the more true leftists, have gotten on board with it a little bit, but they wouldn't have taken the initiative on this themselves. And I'm talking about the more sincere left, even they wouldn't have done it. The NGO, liberal, state kind of backed left type, like Globo, HO, Mo, left. I'm a bit cooked. I can't quite use the language I want to sometimes. But the diversity people, right? They're delighted with this. They're like, oh, welcome immigrants to the fruit picking. That's what they're there for. They're there for that reason. Think of any people you want on the political spectrum. They were not going to make a thing of this. They were not going to make a thing of this, right? We pounded on this for a couple of days, and now it's been forced into the spotlight, and now we have this stuff going on. So it's really important, and keep going on this stuff. This, like I say, I don't know. I'm repeating myself. Walshy says, might be totally retarded question. No, let's say not. But if RT is state media, how are they able to do credible expose on something like this? I mean, I'll take that as like, well, if they're so corrupt and so on the hook for stuff, that they're like I'm claiming almost in a conspiratorial way that like if they're so bad and so whatever, then why would they even report on this in the first place? I mean, I suppose that's a question of nuance. It's like I wouldn't quite claim that we're talking North Korea stuff going on here. Certain things have to be addressed at a certain point. The internet is still, while it is throttled and all that, free to some extent. And that's, I mean, would they have to have reported on this 20 years ago? I'd say it would have been much more likely to go under the radar. But at a certain point, I suppose it's just the answer is the internet. A thing can't be ignored. It becomes too glaringly obvious or whatever. And to some extent, they do just report the news. When I say that they have agenda and they're this and they're that and they're state media, yeah, largely informs what they do. But there's an element of them that does just report the main thing that seems to be going on. Often it's a question of spin as well. For example, you had a lot of them coming out earlier. I've just picked her out as one example. We had a lot of them coming out earlier on Twitter. They were hammering the narrative that Keelings have come out and said that they tried to hire Irish workers, but they couldn't get the workers. All of them, Hugh O'Connell, all of them, right? They were just, they were all putting this out at the same time, big and bold. Whereas the kind of critical stuff, I have to kind of find things like this, and it happens eventually when you push hard enough, long enough. I mean, in a sense, the question is, why doesn't this stuff get, it's coming out now after a furore from, if that's the word, from the public via the internet for days on end. Now they're reporting on it. But as I've been saying this entire evening, this has been going on forever. When I kind of fantasize there about having a kind of a government who would align with my interests in power, the stuff would be getting looked at left, right, and center. And it could be, objectively could be. So to me, it's like, it's not just when them knowing when to stop digging, it's knowing when to not dig at all. It's like avoiding a certain thing. I mean, to me, the example, and I always come back to it as if I'm like very proud, and I kind of am, but like the asylum industry thing for me is like my own go-to experience for the way it's done. It's like I was in the middle of situations. Uachtarard is my big example. I was in the middle of Uachtarard. I knew every last detail about what was going on there, every journalist who was reporting on it, every whatever, right? I obsessed over that. I knew absolutely everything about it. And the entire thing was scary, the way the media came out. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be ranting about it now, but the way they targeted Grealish for everybody to see, the way they tried to divide the so-called far right, i.e. me, they were saying, and some of you guys probably, right, from this kind of link to the community, having this kind of rapport with the community, the way they tried to split that up, there was no accident going on there. That was absolutely done. That was a concerted thing. And that ultimately, I look at that and I go, is that just a bunch of journalists who are like lefties, they're cultural Marxists? No, I was going, this is the state's interests being manifested here by this media. Absolutely no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that an unpleasant story that is bad for the state, if it comes up and it just bursts out there, they will end up reporting on it. Yeah, so it's a little bit on the nuancy side, from my opinion. But I do hate to. I would hate for anyone to think that I have a kind of a conspiratorial worldview that is so black and white that it makes bombastic claims about the level of conspiracy that is all encompassing of absolutely everything. I never quite want to be taken up that way, because I don't. Some people do that, and I try not to. I don't want to say the word nuance too much, but there's a bit of that going on. So that was Ingrid Miley. So we'll see what comes of that. Keelings are now under the spotlight now, and they're just representatives. They are like liaisons and representatives for the entire corrupt system, and I feel no sympathy for them. They are the ones now who are in court for this, for the entire rest of them. Good. So that was National Party. That's Harris is deeply uneasy. Oh, this is funny. It's like, here's an example of the media, right? Here's a perfect example. This segues perfectly from what I was just talking about there, is how the media behave. This David W. Higgins guy, he's basically not media, but he might as well be, or I don't know what he is, but he's on Twitter all the time and he kind of spreads these things. Economist, analyst, loves data. When people say, I'm a policy wonk, all these terms straight away, they're a regime defender, right? Election nerd, I knew it. Emerging voice for like some like economic body or something like that, right? Completely bought in. And he's like debunking this picture, right? I posted of apparently these are the guys from Bulgaria at the bus stop, all crowded together, and it's an outrage and people are sharing it around. Turns out that picture comes from some time before, right? That's the information sphere. You see things come out, fake, real things come out all the time. I am always harping on about this. A fake thing comes out, you might post it yourself and go, oh, this could be a thing. And 10 minutes later, it just goes around. It goes, oh, that's actually fake. It comes down again, usually. Or you just say, oh, that one's bullshit. It's always going to be the way. But this is just my example of the media. So this guy, this regime guy here, right, is pointing out Claire Daly, and that's a sub point, is how the left, these kind of socialist lefties, are getting in on this, which is it's good to see, but I wish they would take the initiative on this stuff from the start, and I wish they wouldn't be so terrified of this racism association. I'm not telling people to be racist or to dislike people, be a bigot. It's none of that. I just mean the ridiculousness of the racism thing, right? To be like desperately trying to disassociate yourself and disavow to the point where the point you're making is so threadbare that it doesn't even make sense. But they are getting into that, and I wish they would, and it's a good thing to see, and I'll respect things as they come. Someone says, I do get distracted. More P says, Garrod, when do you go to Slayer? Not going to know what that means, I'm sorry. Maybe sleep? I go to sleep at about, about 1. Anyway, it's not really relevant, is it? So, Claire Daly is into this stuff. But the point is, we'll get onto that in a second. Oh, it is getting late. But is that in terms of the news, so they're reporting on this, right? There's all sorts of fake stuff comes out, bullshit that needs to be reported on, coming from powerful places, Keelings, this, that, the other, right? And they'll duck and dive it as long as they possibly can. But the amount of things I've posted, and loads of other people have posted online, various platforms said online that I've said on here and whatever, right? Just people are saying from this point of view that are big statements and big revelations and this and that, and they don't debunk it, right? They don't say, hey, let's do a fact check on this. This one turns out to be true, because they often do it with globalist neoliberal talking points. If I were to, let's say, challenge one of these points, and it turns out my challenge actually isn't quite all the way there, they would do a big article. Oh, it's wrong. We can fact check this and verify that this is not true or whatever, right? So it's completely selective, this fact checking bullshit. And they pick up on this thing, which has gone around the place a bit. And they make a huge deal out of this is fake news, this is fake news. And it's like, look, it's the internet. There's going to be some stuff that goes around and goes, oh, that one's actually bullshit. That's not real. it's one among many things, and they hone absolutely in on it. And the point of that is to say this comes from a certain point of view. It is charlatanry. It's not real. Who knows where it came from? But someone put it up falsely, right? And it's not real. The subtext of that is that these people are all trying to dupe you. They are hoaxers. They are liars. They are charlatans. They're full of shit. Listen to us. We'll tell you what's real, right? This stuff going on Facebook, WhatsApp, all lies, all lies. And it's just one of those things where I saw it being fact checked and debunked all over the place. And I'm like, guys, why are you obsessing about this? We're bringing a plane full of people in. It's ridiculous. Like, we need to know more about Keelings. What the hell is going on with Keelings, right? To be fair to Ingrid and Miley. Like, we need more of that. And you're debunking some Facebook post, whatever. Like, debunk it, fair enough. But maybe debunk some other stuff too while you're at it, you know? And that's an example of kind of media. So we have Mick Barry, another socialisty, kind of lefty TD. He's a Cork guy. Cork boy. Keelings and Ryanair. Exploiting cheap labour, which is a big thing for one of these guys. You know, I bet he got in trouble with some of his comrades. Exploiting cheap labour and risking public health, not least the health of a large group of migrant workers crammed into one plane. As for the victim blamers, they go to hell. So he's disavowing the racists, and he's saying one of his chief concerns is the Bulgarians, whatever. But he's still making the point about cheap labour. So that's something. It's interesting to see how they're kind of climbing down on this. Now, they should be completely. I mean, this isn't much. This is crumbs, because it's like, guys, what we're doing here is the true left. Like, this is labor solidarity, not exploiting migrant work. This is all, like, you guys should be out way in front of us on this stuff. And here you are coming in like 2 hours later, kind of meekly. You know, it's something, whatever. We have Paul Donnelly, and he is a Sinn Féin guy. So again, we're moving people. We are moving people. There's reports that 200 workers have been flown in by a local farming company on a flight from Romania. Surely this can't be sanctioned. Big business gets to pick its fruit, but allotments are closed. So like these kind of small community allotments are closed, but yet these rich like chalet in Switzerland owners get to pick theirs with semi-slaves. So again, Paul Donnelly, TD for Dublin West. Credit to you, boy. And we keep pushing them on this. And I don't care if they will always refer to me. I wish they would say, you know, that Garrod guy, he's all right. You know, he seems reasonable enough. So he's making a good point. But what they'll do actually, and I'm not saying it's all about me, but just from my point of view, I wish they would just say, instead of doing that, they will go, this scumbag over here, this horrible, horrible demon should be shunned and disavowed and is terrible, or something like that, right? Shift past the buck, basically. But this point here is kind of true. You know, maybe it's the Bulgarians who are getting the worst of it, and we disavow race. But there's a point to it. It's like, why can't you guys just unshackle yourselves? You don't need to kiss my arse, but like, you know, just this is the whole point. The system wants to do this, to have you like groveling and performatively disavowing the guy to your left or right. You know, just grow a pair and like, you know, let's link up on it a bit. That's what I would say. I think that is when we win. Is when a portion of the anti-woke left, or whatever you want to call it, and this kind of right, this kind of dissident nationalist right, can come together and go, listen, we're not going to start like pointing the fingers at each other. We're not going to start tearing each other apart for some minor disagreements. We'll get on those things because we agree on the essentials here. We're trying to do what's right, and we won't buckle in this kind of performative disavowal, this bullshit, right? That is not real, true to life. It's just complete theater for those above you. So just get out of that, please. But I respect the effort as of now, and hopefully we get these guys to continuing to move in that direction. I've gone on a while here, lads. We have a neoliberal guy here who responds to me telling me to start a strawberry farm. It's kind of like start your own. There's a meme about this. It's very funny. I'll show it to you now for those who haven't seen. It's a stone toss. Stone toss is brilliant. He's one of the best things out there. Yeah, it's a meme. This is a meme from ages ago. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's like, don't like it, build your own Twitter when you get banned from Twitter. And then, you know, don't like it, build your own payment processor when you get your payment processor gets yanked, or your banking details or whatever gets yanked. And then you try to go to Patreon or one of these, and they're like, don't like it, build your own. And then the last thing is like, they can do is like, build your own government. And then we go, yes, Yes, we will. And that's where they force you to. It's such a funny meme. It's like, but it points to that whole thing of like, these guys will use these ridiculous libertarian arguments. If you don't like it, start your own internet. If you don't like it, start your own bank. If you don't like it, start your own strawberry farm. Lad, I mean, should I even bother? It's like that. It's not about individual choice or whatever. It's about the way the entire system operates at a systemic level, and no individual can interfere with that, right? Like I said, it's not just about one company or one thing or me or you starting a strawberry farm. It's about the way the entire market, the rules of the game are set up. And you have these knobs coming up with these points. Like, it's like, I don't even know what to say to something like that, again, it's people like that to me are the true hopeless cases. When I look to someone like Paul Donnelly here or whatever, they might come out another day and say, performatively say, if they got the opportunity to say he's really, really bad, yeah, they might do that. They might do a Judas or not even a Judas, but like they might try to stab you for expediency or whatever. But I still respect their thing. It's this kind of hollow libertarian kind of stuff, almost neoliberal, kind of lefty, kind of libertarian. Like, just they completely throw their hands up to all that is good and reasonable in the world. It's and always seem to be, their arguments always seem to lean in the favor of very rich and powerful people and interests. It's like, that's very interesting. That's the truest contempt I have is for these type of people. So I'll be quick with the rest of this. So restructuring sees Keelings valued at 188 million. So I've been told by some experts, by some professor friends of mine, that that Keelings have tax haven kind of going on in the Isle of Man. And it's in one of these articles. I didn't get time when I was looking at it earlier. Is it control? What's the one for searching a document? Control P? Control F? Yeah, Control F. Isle of Man. So apparently it's in here. Keelings is owned jointly by Joe Keeling, who recently took up the role of chairman in Horse Racing Ireland, and his 3 children, which was a kind of government gig. It is unlimited, and the shares are held through Isle of Man entities. As a result, it does not have to file annual accounts. Keelings is happy to disclose the group's turnover now, but replies to a question about profits with a laugh and the comment of "not enough, not enough. Another day, another dollar. Assholes, not enough." And dripping in jewelry and like I say, chalets in Switzerland. I don't know if they actually have those, but they, you know what I'm talking about. They do probably. Not enough scum. So anyway, this Isle of Man thing, again, this is all, I'm just hearing about this. I'm not saying any of this is fact, but they say that, and apparently Isle of Man, this is some Isle of Man tax stuff here. I'm seeing a lot of zeros. I'm seeing a lot of 0%. So we're looking at potential tax havenry here. So every aspect of it. Again, if you earn 25, 30 or whatever a year, right, as low as you could, there's no tax haven. There's no, I suppose you do get tax relief, but like, okay, say you're in the 50, 60, right? But you're trying to sustain a household and all of this. There's no tax haven for you. It's only for these guys. So on one end, you're on tax haven. On the other end, you have semi-slave labor from another country during a pandemic. It's just, the whole thing is so desperately corrupt, right? And I don't quite, not that I don't hold it against them, but I'm not surprised to have this from these big, rich arseholes, right? Yeah, that's going to be the way it is. They will try to do that. Greed is greed. It's human nature in some people. Like them, little aristocracy, little privatized aristocracy, right? But what gets me is these excusers, these guys, like, who was it over here, was trying to, like, this journalist guy, funnily enough, isn't that interesting? He's trying to say, you're such a loser. These people, these national parties, Neanderthals. I'm trying to find it. This guy, what's his name? Jeremy Dixon, right? Oh yeah, works in his little newspaper thing or his radio station, putting up these weak, insincere, strawman nonsense arguments, right? And what's he pushing back against, right? He's not pushing back against, like, he's acting like he's pushing back against the KKK or something, right? Don't be pulled in by that narrative or anything, right? He's pushing back against, like, Ireland belongs to the Irish, as in, like, That's a statement for Padraig Pearse, for one. At the core of this is this labour situation with Keelings, this scummery, and the labour situation in Ireland, the breaking up of solidarity of labour and of bargaining power, and all of this, the entire economic system I'm talking about, right? Which is only merely represented by this farce of Keelings at the moment. And you have this asshole coming in to defend these guys, this like Isle of Man, like I say, chalet owning, probably, I speculate, people, these kind of people who are living it up, on one end the semi-slave labor, on another end the tax haven, everything in the world, right? Just stuff that would make you sick when you think about it. You just go, it's so wrong, right? And they don't even have to try. They have guys like this. And now, getting more conspiratorial, I would speculate that via, it's kind of like, by a few degrees of separation, ultimately there's an active connection between the Keelingses of the world and these blue ticks, these media people. They are there to propagandize for that power system, you could say. So lest I say it's an accident or something, or a coincidence, that sickens me. I do think it's more conspiratorial, more systematic than that. But regardless, the fact that they're out there shilling for this stuff, it just makes me sick. It's like, guys, and it is just a case. That's why I look at the people who are on the better side, some of the Sinn Féiners, some of the lefties, some of that, right? And I go, guys, this is what we're up against, right? Yeah, I know you pretend like we're bad, or there's something, or you have an issue with this or whatever. Can we just get over it? Because we have all of this going on and we all know it's wrong. So can we just drop the bullshit and like try to stand up as people? A bit of solidarity, a bit of togetherness, right? We don't need to agree on everything. So that's them. That's the Keelings family. The Keelings family. So I mean, I was gonna talk about your mano, Dylan Murray. He said some unpopular language, and I feel like maybe it would be a bit unfortunate if I started trying to defend him after all I've been saying. That it's just about labor. Next thing, if you know anything about this, I'm defending this guy who said what he said. No, I'm only defending him. I'm defending him in a nuanced way because there's a lot to be said about this. But it could be mischaracterized. Garrod comes along and defends this guy. It can be totally mischaracterized. But then again, I mean, did I get into this to like bend the knee to what people will falsely say about you? Maybe not. I don't know if you're up for it. There's 130 of ye there, and it's 12:20. Will I just do it quickly? I'll do it quickly. So this guy, he says, okay, so Dilmer, he's a student in NUIG, I think. I will be quick on this. So he says, I just want to clear this up. I'd not consider myself a racist, nor would anyone who knows me either. The comment made, he said the N word, right, on video or something. The comment made in the first place wasn't directed at anyone, nor said no offense. I said it in the context with the music that was playing at the time. So basically every second song on the radio, right? Then I reacted, trying to explain that I often say it as my stories would, but it just added fuel to the fire. Looking back on it, I should have just apologized in a respectful manner. I was pulled up on it and I deleted and apologized. I apologize to anyone offended. I'll take it on the chin and learn from it. And then he says he's getting death threats, and that's not on, but sorry though. He's getting death threats, but sorry. So basically what he did was, it seems, he said in some like Snapchat or whatever, some kind of TikTok or something, right? I'm a boomer basically, so I don't know. But he's on one of these things, which he probably uploads a video or sends a video like every second hour, right? And in one of these things, I assume, he's at home or something, and he's rapping a song like Biggie Smalls. And if you don't know, now you know, N-word, right? And it's that one. It's the one. I'm sorry I have to because I think it's silly, this reverence to this word. It's like, it's not meant to disrespect anyone. But, the one that ends in A, the abbreviated version, the rap version. And then there's the one that ends in ER, which more harkens back to history, is seen as a bit more serious, right? I can only say it that way, or else I'll be the one getting fucking hounded. But he said the one that ends in A as part of the song. And he said he always does that. He's always uploading these videos or whatever, and he's into rap or something like that. So he's like, I do that all the time, right? It's just rap, like, do you know what I mean? And it's the uncontroversial. I thought it was the soft. I thought we were allowed to say that with the song. And he's getting pulled on it and pulled on that. No, I think he shouldn't get in trouble for anything. But in fairness, under the system we're in, if he was trying to avoid this, or he did kind of mess up a little bit. Now, I don't think it's a big deal, but according to the people who say it is a big deal, what he did then in order to climb out of the hole, apparently he was put in because of that, because someone is harassing him about that. He comes on video to kind of explain it, and he basically says, I said it with the A at the end of it. I didn't say it with the ER at the end of it. And then what he does is say, I didn't say insert the one with ER, right? The one ending in ER, like trigger. We'll say trigger, right? He goes, I didn't say trigger. I didn't say trigger. It's not like I said trigger. I said trigger, right? And I will play I can't play the video. I'm afraid to. Walshy says play the video because he says the trigger word, and I'm afraid that YouTube will get me. If I play a video within this video where a guy says that word with the ER at the end of it, am I getting done? Does the algorithm get me? You tell me, guys. But that's what he says. So he's trying to make a culpa. He's saying, I didn't say it like that. I said it the other way. But then what happens is the controversy that all these people are coming at him about, these horrible people are coming at him with, is going, oh, well, now you said it like that. So it's doubly worse. And it's like the guy just can't get out of it, and type of thing. Yeah, someone says don't play. What I did was I had a look at the video before I went on, and I noticed that if I get to roughly, and I could get in trouble here with this, if I go to roughly halfway, he's done saying it with the ER, he's done saying trigger, and from then on he says trigger. So I think I'll try to go to that, just to give you a feel for what kind of guy this is. Like, he's a young fella. Yeah, he's an absolute tool as well, by the way.
Pussy-o! I know,
Yeah.
but you white, you vocabulary, you white.
Twitter videos are useless. They always do this. They
White, you pussy-o! I know, but yeah, it wasn't in a fucking offensive way. So shove your comment up your arse and shove all the other comments up my arse. And I'm not going crazy in quarantine.
Up your arse.
Like, that's not me going crazy. I say it every day. Nigga. Bitch ass nigga. Like, I just...
Right, he's a tool. He's an absolute tool.
Yeah. What? How do you say that?
Can I get him to stop talking now? Yeah. Okay, so he's an unrepentant tool, right? But that's all he is. He's just a tool of a young fella, right? The guy doesn't... I mean, there's a lot of tool young fellas out there, right? That's all he is. But the tragedy of this is he's being dragged by all these, like, these who are like, I own this like language, this bullshit, right? The acting offended, these sassy black women, these Irish whatever, and but the funny thing is he's getting dragged for this. Long story short, it's just a thing in the chat there. You'll know what made me laugh, but so he's getting dragged, and it's like the dean of the college is being like, we're looking into this, we're taking this matter very seriously, right? So he's looking into these stories we've heard from the United States basically and elsewhere of like, he's going to get dragged over the coals. He'll probably either get thrown out, if not he'll have to go to like sensitivity training, which is like a Maoist struggle session where he has to get on his hands and knees and like, it's awful, right? And it's likely he could get kicked out of college, and if not that, then it'll be on the search. Basically, he's in a worse boat than I am, right? Because at least I've put myself out ideologically against, not to sound like a mad sham, but against this kind of system of thought or whatever, right? I've kind of abandoned it and said, fuck it. But I've done that consciously with a goal in mind and a whatever, whereas this is just some young tool, and suddenly he finds young tool should be his rap name, but suddenly he finds himself in the same position I am, or worse. So it tells you a lot about this nonsense. And the tragedy is he's in this position, but if you find, I'll go to his page here. If you go to his page, he is I said trigger and trigger, right? Well, he is, I hope I'm allowed to say this, he's the biggest wigger you will ever find in your entire life, judging by his Twitter. He has this obsessive and weird mentality, these white lads who are like, just desperately like want to be black or I don't know, it's weird. And he's all about it. He's like, I mean, I just had a brief look a few days ago, and he's all, it's like it's actually, to me, it's kind of weird, to be honest. Like, all about Chance the Rapper, Walking Trophy, whoever that is. This kind of, and this is all posted, I think, like before all this kind of stuff. This isn't some like cop out to try and get out of trouble. He's genuinely a little wigger, right? And it's sad. And even there, he's like, yo, it's just embarrassing. He's Ali G, yeah. And it's funny because for all his wiggerism, here he is, and he's getting done by it. And it's so ridiculous. Like, and you know, what is hoisted by his own petard or whatever. It's like, it's just kind of like, you know, why don't you just come out and say fuck off? Just like piss off, like, you know, like whatever. And if the dean is saying, oh, we're taking this very seriously, just go, you know what, fuck off. I don't want your college. I'm off. Do something else, whatever, figure it out. But just like whatever happened to the idea of like not bending the knee, like, you know, that simple thing, that the ideal we all kind of had in our heads as young people. And we're kind of, you know, you watch Braveheart, Braveheart's exaggerating things a bit, but, you know, just the general idea of honor and kind of like, I will not bend the knee like this so flagrantly. Now, we all make compromises in life, but I won't, you know, what's the word? Explicitly bend the knee before you when you're so clearly doing it in such a way. It's such a power dynamic. You just want me to bend the knee. And no one's offended here. This is bullshit. And it doesn't make sense, and it's not logical, because we could go into all this stuff. You can say what you want about white people or Irish people, and I was just saying a thing anyway, and you're the ones, like, I'm listening to musical. Never mind all that bullshit, right? We know it doesn't make sense, but it's like, so you should just be able to go piss off. You have no power over me. You can have no power over me, right? Do your worst, and they're all just laying in. Let's just have a look at these. So, somebody find this man's college so I can get him kicked out. And again, this is coming into like Ireland, this kind of black thing, Black History Month. Oh, I don't believe this white, you know, whatever, front, and I'm such a boomer, but like whatever it is, right? On this racist, you know, whatever. It's like, fuck off, you know, like, as in, like, I'm not coming out here being actually like bigoted against you or whatever. I honestly don't care. Should like a million Africans come here? No, I don't think that. But like in an individual little sense, I'm not the guy you're going to find getting pushed or bigoted or like whatever. But also, just fuck off, right? Thinking you have this kind of historical grievance, and should I even take these like bitches seriously? But like, you know. No, I'm getting into the language. It's like, what's his name? Dylan, Young Tool is rubbing off on me. He, you know, it's like but to take them seriously for a second, it's like Black history, this, that, and the other. There is no Black history here, right? Except for your mano, Frederick Douglass, this kind of symbolic thing or whatever. But like, there's no Black grievance here. Your slavery narrative in the US. Everyone in the world, historically, there's been slavery going on. What, Russia, serfdom, this, that, the other, Arab slavery, blah, 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 blah. Americans could make those arguments to say, we're not the only ones who did it, and this is exaggerated, blah, blah, blah. We don't even have to go there. We can just say there's no, more Irish people have been enslaved by what is it? Was it Moors or someone else? Anyway, that's the whole slavery argument. But it's like, you don't have a grievance here. And I see Phil Lynott mentioned, I'm not saying Ireland doesn't have any history. What I'm saying is this like, you oppressed us, you committed crimes against us, therefore you were in constant kind of fear and on your knees and this kind of thing, apologetic kind of weakened state before us. And if you know, oh, you said that word wrong and this and that. It's just, again, I come back to my thing of just like, piss off, fuck off. I don't, like, you have no power over me. Like, as in, you could, like, if you want to come, like, try to destroy someone's life or kill them or whatever you want, but it's like, go for it. But you've no power over me, as in terms of actually getting me to lower myself to this shit. Piss off. And if we all collectively said that, you know what I mean? But this is the problem with, this is why diversity for all, it's, you know, there are good things to some amount of it and all that, but ultimately it just turns into this this kind of tribalistic opportunism, because what they're doing is taking it. They're being horrible, right? And if you could say it's not all of them, it's like, well, where are all the people who are pushing back, the Black Irish people, so to speak, who are pushing back against these ones and saying this, they're not there, and they're not there, and even a lot of our own are siding up with them. It's like, that's where you end up. But this guy. So what else are we seeing? So the comments, just in case I haven't made my point. You reap what you say. You reap what you sow. Don't play the victim now. So this cruelty, and this is a guy who prostrated himself before black culture, to worship it almost at the altar, right? And here it is, like, whereas me, in a way, they've less power. It's like, I just don't care. But and if they were coming after someone, it should be like some people here and myself and whatever. If they think we're against immigration or something, it's bad. But they're going after him. They want to hang him. And it's like, it goes from like, what do you get? It's like, it goes from like, I don't see color, to suddenly, well, you should see color. You should see color and feel a responsibility and a guilt of some sort, right? So it's always moving. And you saw it with that Brett Weinstein guy, the way they were laughing at him and mocking him. They know this is, they laugh at this, and they rub their hands with this shit. And this, I'm not saying all black people, but just the majority of people here involved in this kind of stuff, they completely are not offended. There's no, like, that piece in you when you're offended, like someone says, like, I don't know, let's say you overheard people in a room talking about how ugly you were or how annoying you were. You'd feel a certain type of hurt and offense, right? Genuine. It would be palpable. That's what being offended is. They're absolutely not offended. This is nonsense. But they just want to exercise power over this guy and over us to some extent. You reap what you sow, so don't play the victim now. If you're serious about this is Roisin Ní Loughlin, the I don't know, the thought of NUIG type of thing. The Ogre, Sinn Féin Ogre, we've heard about her before. But if you're serious about this, attend anti-racism courses. This is very interesting, guys, actually. So if I can have your attention, this is a little bit more interesting. She says, if you're serious about this, attend the anti-racism courses at the NUIGSU. This is such cult stuff. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. What you said in the video was horrible to watch, and it's evident that education is needed. It's also horrible that people are trying to get you kicked out for it, though. So she takes a nuanced position. She says, I see a thing going on about Phil Linnett here. Phil Linnett, I mean, I've had this before on Millennial Woes. I said, because there were basically, I'll be frank, Wignat Spurgs in the chat, which is insider language, right? But who were trying to force me on this whole racial question. And I'm nationalist, like, on a lot of stuff, right? But I was saying, I refuse to say Sean O'Halpine, Phil Linnett, people like that are not Irish, right? It just doesn't make sense. They are, I'm not even going to get into it now, but it's stupid, right? And I'm not, this whole idea that, it's so silly. That's rubbish, right? But anyway, so anyway, this Roisin tries to basically like indoctrinate him, like cult up on him here too. But she's just about lenient enough to say, I don't think you should be kicked out for it, though. Okay, thanks for being so nice, right? You want me to be brainwashed, but you don't quite want me to be kicked out, okay? And then they start turning on each other because this Valentina Sorpeza chick, she's like, oh, it's horrible because you're only paying lip service. She's basically castigating the other one for saying, you're saying he shouldn't be kicked out. You're also white. What is this? And it's this power, it's this raw, racial, tribal, cutthroat stuff. And it's completely out in the open, and it's obvious. And yet these people are trapped in it. You have this Roisin and this young tool, Dylan, completely unarmed. They don't know what to do. So he's in trouble. The one who's castigating him and saying he should be brainwashed, but not quite kicked out. Well, now she's a white racist too, almost, right? What's the problem here? And it's this tension. And it's like, this is what happens. This is ultimately what happens out of diversity in the long run, right? what's the word? Inelectable, insoluble. It's a fact of life, and there's no getting around it. There is not. But at least if you're going to have, this is why you should control numbers, but at the same time also enforce to whatever extent, and some of the nationalists will come out to me here, insofar as you do have some diversity, there should be a strong ethos on this pluralistic kind of thing, right? At the very least. But we have the worst of both worlds. The numbers just flow. Cheap labor, Keelings, whatever, break the country down. And at the same time, this narrative, this poison, at the same time, where do you think that goes, right, in the long run? It only gets more and more oppressive. And the numbers start to stack against you as time goes by. We all know these kind of arguments. But that's, I mean, when you look at this stuff straight in the face, I mean, am I the one who's making it up? Is it me? It's not me who's doing it or creating it. I can't say I'm doing it. It just is the way it is. And what happens then is people start pointing the finger at, as I'm doing now, at me for saying it is the way it is. And it's like, you could kill me, you could shoot me now, and it wouldn't change the way this is going. So why would you do that? You know what I mean? I'm not creating stuff. I'm just pointing it out. So your apology won't make a difference. So there's people siding with him. Someone here says, Michelle says, no, you're just sorry that you finally got called out. This is the same like the NASCAR guy. And I don't want to be coming out on every night defending the latest person who said the N-word. Like that's whatever. It could be kind of used against me. It's not that I'm like saying we should all be going around saying it. It's just the idea of the stuff is so stupid. And it keeps coming up, so the university. So yeah, this is from the university. I'm writing on behalf of the Dean of Students in Galway. I wish to acknowledge your complaint in relation to a video that was shared online. We are investigating the circumstances, and please be assured that any student who is found to breach our student code of conduct will be sanctioned accordingly. So we see the way this is going. It's like, I mean, should I be saying the obvious here of like, it is that thing of like, they talk about white fragility, white supremacy, white this, white that. Irish people have to, be kind of proportionally, just this American, it basically does come out of America. It's an American narrative, which even in America is kind of poorly represented and twisted, but it certainly doesn't apply here. And I hope Irish people, because Irish people do have a kind of pair of balls going on somewhere in there. There's a pair of balls going around, right? And a bit of that vigor, that kind of Italian, Irish, kind of Spanish, maybe non-Anglo kind of life going on. And maybe we could find it in ourselves as this grows. Just be like, like we're not trying to kick every last one of you out, or be like, this kind of caricature of like this kind of KKK rampage. It's like, that's stupid, right? We're not talking about any of that, which is the false characterization. But like, if you think you're going to tell me things, then you can fuck yourself. Basically, because that's what they need to be told. It's almost like they're asking to be told. It's like, just go fuck yourself. Like, and again, what it comes back to, because people will say, well, do you hate? I'll say, because you hate people of a different background and all this stuff. You hate all people who aren't Irish being in your country. Nah, what I hate, I have no hate, right? I have no hate, but I do have a little bit. And the people I hate, it always comes back to this for me in terms of this whole racism thing, right? Is that the word hate comes up a lot as some form of accusation. No hate. Even for these people who are exceedingly hateable, right? I don't even hate them. I don't. They, whatever, right? What I hate are the Irish people who are engaged in narrative construction for these people, who are engaged in opening our borders and getting us to apologize and breaking us down and creating everything that makes this happen. Because again, whatever she's called here, or whatever, what's her name, Valentina, they have no power on their own. They're not smart. They're not sincere. None of that. Their power comes completely down from on high through narrative, through enforcement, the way the college are enforcing this and everything. It all comes down from on high. And it's the people who hand that power down, people who are allegedly of our own people, who kind of turn to you and put you at the altar, at the sacrificial altar of this stuff, and kind of grin as it happens, creating the whole thing. Those are the people. So it's the NGOs, it's the opportunistic politicians, the business class, the everything, the university rhetoric, the language of this, cultural Marxism, whatever you want to call it, right? That's what I hate, and that's who I hate. And every last one of these NGO opportunists who's getting a nice little wage and has a nice little position and is very kind of gets access to the columns and goes to the functions and are making money and status off of all of this, cashing in. They're the ones I hate, and that's all. So, I mean, that's Dylan. That's Dylan, young tool Dylan. It's a tragic story, really. And I hope, sorry, because he is young. I hope he cops on, grows out of the silly Wiggism, and goes past this and doesn't suffer too much, and like just kind of cops on and becomes like an adult, like an actual man. Maybe it could be a growing experience for him. Anyway, that's where I'm at tonight. I went on for a while, and I appreciate you sticking with me. And I'm sorry for my internet going a while ago. And I hope I wasn't rambling too much. I went on for ages. I'll be back tomorrow night. So that's about it. That is about it. Yeah. Okay. Let's do a full screen. Face you like a man. Okay. Actually, I will have I'll have a chat check. Yeah, Dragon Energy says, poor lad. Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for him. You know, it's one of those things where you like someone really annoys you and pisses you off and is like a complete toolbox. But at the same time, you don't like to see that happen to them. It's kind of bad. Sing a song. Well, I'm working on a song. I have my guitar there and I'm working on a song. It's Strawberry Fields Forever. So it's kind of like profit is easy with Bulgarian slaves. La 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 la. Goes like that. So that's how it's going to go. You could tell it's going to be epic already, I'm sure. But I did one earlier. And I can't post it because it's too radical. It's way too radical. I'd get in trouble. So it has to be private. So I'm going to moderate it, make it more appropriate. And I might put it up. And someone wants a Jimmy McCarthy song, Strawberry Fields McGregor. Someone asked me, have I seen Morgoth's recent video? I watch every Morgoth video as it comes in, of course. Yeah. Throw up the tune. Yeah, I will. I'll think about it. So I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to go to bed. And thanks everybody for watching. See you. Good night.